My name is Karthik Bappanad. I am the center head of SciSec. SciSec is Karnataka State Government's Center of Excellence in Cybersecurity. Welcome to today's webinar that we are doing in partnership with Cisco. A few ground rules to start with. All attendees to the webinar will be on mute by default. We will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. You can type your questions on the chat window and it will be responded after the completion of the presentation. Alternatively, you can do a raise of hands on the webinar platform and we will unmute you. We are also going to record this webinar and the recording will be uploaded on the SciSec YouTube channel. You can always refer back to the video later if necessary. This webinar is part of a series that we started last month under the title Samgachadvam, May We All Progress Together. The objective is to cover different topics of security over the course of this series. We want to provide a conceptual overview in this webinar and the various aspects of security, and hope this will kindle your interest to explore further. This is the 6th webinar in this series. The topic of today's webinar is software-defined network and how it provides for enhanced security and more effective and efficient management. It's great to have Cisco partner with us for this webinar. Cisco is of course well known to all of us as a global leader in network and security products and services. The topic for next week's webinar is Secure Multi-Party Computing. This will be taken by Professor Arpita Patra from Department of Computer Science and Automation at Indian Institute of Science. We will open the registration for this webinar tomorrow. We have more such webinars lined up over the next few weeks, and I hope you will find this series of webinars useful. Do let us know if you have any feedback as well as any ideas to share with us. We also have an assessment arranged at the end of the webinar. The link for the assessment will be shared at the end. Those who successfully complete the assessment will be provided a certificate. The assessment will be kept open for 60 minutes after the completion of the webinar. The questions are from the topic covered during the webinar itself, so you should not have too much difficulty in cracking this assessment. Those who get 7 or more correct out of 15 questions will be provided the certificate. At the end of the assessment, you will also be asked to provide feedback on the webinar. Please provide your genuine feedback and be rest assured the feedback will not have a bearing on the assessment. One limitation is that you need to have a Gmail ID to take this assessment. The certificate will be emailed to the Gmail ID you would have used to log in to the assessment. We will send across the certificates in the next few days. Please make sure you provide your details accurately when taking the assessment, because the certificate will be generated based on the details you are going to enter. Let me now introduce the speaker for today's webinar. We have Bhishma Narayan Sharma from Cisco with us for this webinar. Bhishma has experience across various domains of security, including cyber security, data security, network security, both at architect and engineering levels. He is a distinguished speaker at Cisco Live and regularly speaks at various Cisco internal and external forums on emerging technologies and security practices. He has mentored teams and budding engineers at various forums like Smart India Hackathon in 2019. Bhishma is passionate about building security architectures and adopting new technologies to solve real-world problems. Now I will hand over to Bhishma to take you through the rest of the webinar. Bhishma, over to you.
Thanks, Karthik, for the introduction. If you can pass me the presenter rights, I can go ahead and share and we can quickly get started.
Yeah, Bhishma, I have made you the presenter now.
Thank you. I hope the screen is visible.
Not yet. Not yet, Bhishma.
Okay.
Yep. Now we can see. Yes.
So thanks everyone for joining for today. Today's session is around software-defined networking. And before we jump on to the session, just to add to what Karthik just mentioned about me, I'm deeply passionate about cybersecurity, and when I'm not doing anything related to security or reading about a new technology, I'm either traveling or doing sketching or participating in any of the adventure sports. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at what is software-defined networking and what are the
ನೀವು ಯಾವ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತನಾಡುತ್ತಿರುವಿರೋ ಅವರು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಾಲನ್ನು ಹೋಲ್ಡ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಲೈನ್ನಲ್ಲಿರಿ. The person you are speaking with has put your call on hold. Please stay on the line. आप जिस व्यक्ति से बात कर रहे हैं उसने आपकी कॉल को होल्ड पर रखा है. कृपया लाइन पर बने रहें.
Those who are not speaking, can you please go on mute? Can I request everyone who is not speaking to please go on mute? Yeah, Bhishma, you can carry on.
Thank you. So as I was saying, the idea for today is we'll take a look at what is software-defined networking. What are the use cases that we can build and which can really help in solving some of the problems that we are facing right now. Like right now, the biggest problem that we were facing at one point was spinning up the new healthcare infrastructure to meet the requirements. The existing healthcare infra was not good enough to handle the load. Then how about scaling the bandwidth, which we are, because now everyone is working from home, taking classes from home. So the bandwidth requirements have changed drastically. So how do we look into that? How can we solve those use cases with the help of SDN? Then we'll take a look at some of the historical architecture from where the SDN, what it is today, has evolved. Then followed by, we'll deep down into the architecture and we'll take a look at some of the security aspects of it. In today's world, no matter what we speak about, what technology, what domain we are into, security has become a paramount and it's a non-negotiable concept when it comes to anything today. Even when we are going and buying some electronic, we want to ensure that the device is not being compromised. There's no hardware tampering which has happened. There's no software backdoor which is there. If we're going to a hospital, we want to make sure that our health records are kept in a safeguarded manner. When we are doing transactions online, we want to make sure that our credit card data is secure. So no matter what field of life we talk about, security is something which is non-negotiable now. We have to look into it. And then for some of you, SDN might be a new concept altogether. So we'll share some of the starting points which you can use to start and build upon your expertise into SDN. So with that, let's get started. So SDN, as a word, is software-defined networking. In terms of defining what SDN is, there's no right and wrong. If you go and probably talk to 10 different people, all of them will give you a different perspective of what SDN means. It's quite similar to what cloud means to people. I mean, if you are setting up some application or something onto cloud, okay. So I would just request if anyone who's still on audio can just mute yourself. Thanks. So the SDN, if you look at from what it essentially tries to do, or what we're trying to achieve with SDN, is we're basically trying to decouple the control plane and data plane function of a network. We want to intelligently segregate the network controls and bring out the virtualization concept, bring out the programmability aspect into pictures with which we can really scale up the networks in real time, with which we can have more granular controls onto it. So it's all about the concept. So SDN, if you look at it, it's a network transformation. We want to move away from a traditional router switch based network wherein we go configure the policies and they remain static in nature. We want it to be a next generation network wherein, if let's say you want to bring in an application, how this application will behave, the network automatically adapts to it. So if let's say you spin up one application and it requires a certain amount of bandwidth, the network can provision that bandwidth for you in real time. And the best example, if you want to look at it today, if you look at the applications like Netflix or Hotstar, which are pretty much into the content providing space. So if you look at those applications, whenever they bring up something, everything is in micro application. So when they bring up something, they scale up to the infrastructure as and when needed. Another good example that we often see in our lives, the Big Billion Day sales on Amazon and Flipkart. So if you look at it, a traditional way of network, they would have to build the entire infrastructure to handle the traffic load on those 2 days in real from day one, which will be a cost which they don't have to necessarily bear because it's not giving any value to them. So if they leverage the SDN, which they do in various forms, they actually spin up that infrastructure, those services, those applications at the time when that Big Billion Day comes in. So instead of having everything ready 365 days a year, they just do it for those 2 days or 3 days. So it's a huge saving for them, and from our perspective, it brings a lot of new avenues where we can add inputs, where we can add a lot of value in terms of building up the new services, in terms of building up new applications, in terms of bringing and optimizing what currently we have. So to some of you, it might be sounding SDN is something like an easy button. You just click it and it turns it on. Well, it is, but we just need to understand what are the building blocks of it. It's as simple as if you look at your curriculum, the first year we study pretty much all the common subjects. and then in the later years of our engineering, we go into studying the domain specific subjects. So the subjects that we studied in the first year are basically the building blocks. Understanding C and C++ is going to be a building block if somebody wants to understand Python or wants to understand Ruby or any of the higher languages. So it's all about understanding it and breaking it down and using it in our daily approaches. To understand SDN, you don't have to be a network engineer who understands the networking protocols in and out. You don't have to be an expert into the router space or the switch space. Basically, you need to understand the application and the business flow, what you're trying to build, and you build around that. So, have you seen SDN before? Knowingly and unknowingly, we have seen SDN at a lot of places. So, the best example of SDN is if you go to the airports, you look at the printers where those airline staff is printing out the details of the flight history and everything. It's a dot matrix printer. Now, if something goes wrong because of that printer inside the network, it is very difficult to troubleshoot, to identify it. But if you look at the printers which are the smart printers, you don't have to do anything. You could be anywhere in the world. Based on your needs, you can send out a print command and the print can be taken when you are there in front. So programmability is everywhere around us. We just need to look into it and understand how we can use and consume it into our real life. So where did this SDN came from? So SDN came from so Stanford University back in 2008 decided to reboot the internet. Basically, they decided, okay, we have understood in last 20 years what the internet is, what it does, what it can provide, but let's take a step forward and redesign it from so that it can really scale and can really add a value in terms of what we want to achieve as a use case. In the old days, the internet was just about two hosts communicating and talking to each other. But now it is much beyond it. We use it in our daily lives. It is a paramount thing. Like today, if you want to go anywhere in the world, we need internet. We just put the destination into our GPS and we just follow the path. So how it all works in the back end is something which is exciting and which was agreed in this. So Cisco was one of the biggest contributors there, along with Ericsson at the time when the SDN concept was being conceptualized. So, so let's understand why they came out with this architecture and what they were trying to solve. So traditionally, the network has two components, a control plane and a data plane. So take it like control plane is your compute. It takes the decision. It tells you what to do, what not to do. And data plane is a blind or a dumb machine which just follows the order and forwards the traffic, does whatever has been told by the control plane to it. Now, if you look at it from a purist SDN per se, wherein instead of having control plane and data plane on every single device, the problem that happens if you have this kind of an architecture where control plane and data plane are on every device, you cannot scale the infrastructure. So imagine you have to configure in your universities or in your colleges, if you have to configure the wireless access points, you would probably have hundreds of them. Or for that matter, if we want to install wireless access points in Bangalore, we would probably need tens of thousands of those devices to be installed. Now, to do it every single device at the location is humanly not possible. So the idea came in, let's take out the control plane from the devices and make a centralized controller which can automate this process. Now, the problem with that was, if you have something which is purely centralized and you lose access to the central server, no matter what level of redundancy you put together, there's always a chance that you cannot have 100% of it. So if you lose it, you actually lose the access to that device. You cannot create new policies and everything. So a new concept came in, which was a hybrid SDN, wherein you will have a dedicated control plane, but you will still retain some of those control plane functions onto your network footprint. So on your switches, on your routers, you will still have some controls which you can invoke at the time of need. Your primary will always be through the central controller. So imagine if now I have to go and install 10,000 devices, wireless access points in Bangalore, I can do that in a couple of hours. All I have to do is connect those devices. They will sync up to the master controller and done. All the configuration, everything gets pushed from there, access rights, everything gets done from the central controller. Now, if for some instance I lose the access or some device is faulty or for any of that reason, if I have to log in and control it, I can very well log into that particular device and manage it and do my operations on top of it. So now, what are some of the use cases what we are trying to build or what we are seeing right now? So, the number one, the research academia. I mean, to carry out research, you need to build experimental protocols, you need to build experimental algorithms. And the best example is in front of us right now, wherein the researchers are also sitting at their home labs doing research on the COVID medication, coming out with formulas. They need to share this information. So in order to share this information, they may need to design some new protocols. They may need to create something new. So how can we help them? So by bringing in segmentation, isolating their infrastructure or their connectivity from rest of the world and ensuring that they have a dedicated instance or dedicated bandwidth available to them to perform their operations can really help them out. Now, when you're working or when you're studying or taking classes from home, if you have to upgrade your bandwidth, all you have to do is you simply have to just go to your provider's website, change your plan, and your bandwidth will automatically get changed because the network devices which are provisioned will automatically get the policy pushed down, which will ensure that you get whatever bandwidth you are paying for. So if you upgrade from 100 megs to 1 gig, it automatically happens. Then the other very important use case that we are seeing right now is scaling up the data centers or scaling up the infrastructure. So as you all must be knowing that we converted few of the trains into an isolation ward so that if needed, the COVID patients can be isolated and quarantined into those trains and treated there. That was just the physical part of it. But to install medical devices, equipment, you need an infrastructure which can support that, an infrastructure which can really perform the way you want it to. Like if you look at a router is designed to receive packet from one interface, forward it out. If you look at a switch is a dumb device. It just looks at the MAC address, looks inside the app table, transmits the packet. It doesn't have the intelligence what a router has. So how can you have a device which can perform as to your needs? So for example, take an appliance. For you, it might be a black box or a white box, wherein so you take this white box, you go configure it the way you want to. So if this medical device wants to have a VPN connectivity to somewhere, you can program that into the device. If you want it just to have internet access, you can program that internet access to the device. So how it helps you is, and how it has actually helped us in this time is that instead of putting all that heavy infrastructure, bringing this, because right now even the supply chains are impacted. The devices cannot be taken out from the shipping, from the storage units to the delivery centers, because the whole infrastructure is now focused on the essentials. So having this white box at the site with programmability, you can add and you can program it the way you want to. And because now it's all about the scalability, it's all about programmability. You can scale it up as you need it. And this is pretty much being used by all the service providers today. A lot of big enterprises, the governments are using it to do their activities. So what is SDN trying to address is, it is trying to address the requirements of having a centralized configuration and ability to override the traditional controls that we have. If we need to have those traditional controls, we can have it, but we can build our controls in as and when we need and the way we want those controls to be in place. It allows us to rapidly scale the deployment. So let's take the example of Netflix again. So if somebody has seen the micro applications of what they run inside the Netflix cloud, you would be amazed. And if you want to relate it to something what you have seen, you can very well relate it to the Death Star in Star Wars. All those micro applications put together, it pretty much looks like the Death Star. So if you bring in one application and you do it the traditional way, you won't be simply able to make out where to connect, what to connect, where to reach. But with SD, you just have to program. You would already have the programs available. You just have to insert into it inside the fabric, and it automatically gets turned out in real time. So why to change? Big question. I mean, why do we even need to change from the traditional way to the new programmability way? Simply because the old way how things were designed or things were programmed, it was never designed and intended to be programmed. It was more of a CLI, one command after the other. But in world of programmability, where you have the objects available, so most of you must have done C++ or Java or Python. So there you have the concept of reusable objects and inheritance. So you create more and more objects and functions which you can reuse as and when you need those functions. So let's take a look at one of the initial technologies. It's still being used to certain extent. So we call it as OpenFlow. It's basically a layer 2 communication protocol, which defines how the communication will be between the control and the forwarding layer. How the forwarding plane and the network devices communicate. How to manipulate this is what OpenFlow allows us to do. So it's basically a set of controls. So the one you see it right now is the OpenFlow version 1, which had some 13 controls inside it. So if you look at today, a router or a switch, you just get the packet, you look at the MAC address, you look at the ASK query where it needs to be forwarded, and it gets forwarded there. But if you look at over here, I have more granular controls. I can do the replication of it. So if I receive packets on one interface, and from my security stack, I need to send it to 10 different applications, I can push that to 10 different applications, 10 different ports. So forward it to port 14 to 24. If I want to inspect that, I can do inspection on that traffic. So right now, the OpenFlow version 3 has close to 40 plus controls on which it can basically create filters and apply the actions that you want to do. So, what is Open Daylight? It's a Linux based. It's an architectural framework which was designed specifically to bring out a commonality between various devices. So devices from, let's say you have devices from 10 different vendors, or for that matter, if you buy an iPhone and an Android phone, how can you make sure that you have a single policy plane? If a single controller which creates a policy which gets pushed down to those two devices and gets converted into the device specific, the device understands the common framework, converts the config into what it needs and use it. So Open Daylight provides that framework. So of late, it's been not used or not updated that significantly, but it is still one of the first frameworks that was designed to handle and to understand those challenges. Because in today's world, we cannot have a one single vendor network. We will have multiple devices, and when you look at it from a smart city perspective, you will have devices, IoT devices, which will have sensors maybe from the likes of Siemens or Ericsson of the world, and you would have network devices from Cisco. So how can you as a programmer, or how as an administrator, control, manage all of them and secure them? So it provides that architectural framework. So one thing what it uses is, so traditionally to configure anything, we used to log into that particular device, or we do a telnet or SSH to that device, and we configure it. So one shift that we did was we started using NetConf. So if some of you are interested, so NetConf is part of the RSC 4741, which was, I think, and it was later revised to 6241 in, I guess, 2011 or 2012. And what it basically does is it provides you a framework wherein you can create policies. Let's say you create XML style policies, which when pushed to those devices understand this XML config, parses the config and converts into their own language and starts applying those policies. So this is the screenshot from one of the Open Daylight controller. So now you have the devices, you have the framework which you can use to configure, to program these devices. Now we need something to orchestrate it. I mean, at least if somebody asks me, I'm a lazy developer. I'm too lazy to program anything. I need some kind of a master orchestration which can automate a lot of work from me. So ONAP was one such orchestration which is being built and which interacts with the Open Daylight framework. So now, because when you look at it from a programming perspective, when you program certain application, or when you guys build some software, you interact with various components. You interact with the hardware components. So the guys who understand microprocessor. So you program the microprocessor to do certain activities, to do certain operations. Now, when the hardware has performed certain operations, the overlay software layer needs to store it somewhere. You can communicate to the database server. You can store it there, perform operations, and all of that you can do. So ONAP is on a higher level, is the orchestration platform which is there. So what are some of the protocols which are there in SDN world? So just a disclaimer, like we don't have to really go into details of each one of them right now. The reason why I kept it is so that you guys have an idea onto what all is there, and each one of this is a domain in itself. So you can pick up that domain, specialize into it, and solve the problems on that space. So if you pick up the management platform, so inside the management platform, you have various ways how you can interact with a device. One way is obviously using the netconf way or the Ansible way of configuring a device. So you can create a whole new application which can change the way we configure various devices. Now, if you want to orchestrate the operations, the overall operations, we can build the orchestration there. And then you have on the network side, because on one side we are creating an application, we are creating a program, but the underlying devices have to route this traffic. So you can use various routing technologies which are available to us and control like one such which I very like is BGP and OSPF. I love those routing technologies. Great flexibility. Yeah, on the first level, understanding OSPF and BGP might be too mind-boggling, but if you get down to it, it's fantastic and it's still applicable today. The whole internet is running on BGP, so it's something which is very unique, which is very exciting. So many a times, like we hear about what are the various standards, the open community, and if you look at SDN, it's not a closed architecture. It's not something which is proprietary, which is closed. It's designed and it's conceived to be open. And there are a lot of organizations, a lot of standard bodies which are working on SDN, and we at Cisco actively participate in a lot of them. We have contributed a lot to these communities, these technologies. So I mean, the Open Daylight contribution, if you just look at the 25% of the work for Open Daylight, which was open source, was done by Cisco. So for the guys who are very passionate about security, we have our threat intel site, TalisIntelligence.com. So if you go into it, we have published all our threat to pretty much a lot of our threat tools as an open source. The Snort IPS is open source. Anyone who wants to build their own security inspection engine, they can download the Snort and start using it. So we have been actively participating in a lot of these communities like OpenStack, IEEE, ONF, CloudStack, IETF, and we will continue to do the same going forward as well. And so now let's step out from the use case, what SDN is, how it really helps us, and understand what are the building blocks, what are the fundamental layers of SDN, and how we can use them in our life, and how we can build our solutions around it. So this is a standard traditional SDN architecture, and you have three primary layers. One is basically the bottom one is your infrastructure layer, which is where you have your devices. Then you have your services layer, or your services layer, where you have basically running the services, the control plane, and then you have the application layer. If you have to relate it, so the best example is you take your laptops. Okay, on your laptop you have RAM, you have hard disk, you have keyboard, you have monitor. All of that is a device. Now, on top of it, you're running an operating system. Could be like I'm running Mac at the moment. You could be running Linux, you could be running Windows or Mac. So that becomes your operating part of it, the services. And now on top of it, you would be running certain applications. Like right now, all of us are using Zoho application to connect to it. So these are my three layers. Now, what SDN does is it builds abstraction into all of these three layers. It bifurcates them into the device abstraction layer, the network layer, the control plane layer, to provide functions and services and capabilities to it. So if, let's say, my control plane wants to communicate to my devices, so I have commonality there. So my southbound interface can be talking over NetConf, which means no matter what device I have, as long as they are supporting NetConf, I can configure, I can manage, and instruct those devices to route the traffic in a certain way. From a northbound perspective, so southbound is basically the downward side inside the network. So from the central point, if you go towards south, it becomes the southbound interface. If you go upwards, it becomes the northbound interface. We often call it as north-south and east-west. So they're general directions, but are from the traffic flow perspective. So if from an operating system, if I want to interact with certain application that is hosted, I could use the APIs which are available to me to interact with the application and perform my operation, what I want to perform. So primarily we have three layers, which is the interfaces, the application, and services. And then what we're trying to do is we are trying to basically build the abstraction, which is basically the guys who do a lot of programming and all can understand. It's basically building a model which allows interoperability to me and homogeneity between various devices to bring together, to have one protocol, one for controlling the devices, for managing the devices, and monitoring the network functions. So these slides that you see, these are for your reference. So after the session, you can have these slides, refer to them, and use them as a starting point to build on top of it.
Yeah, we'll also have the recording uploaded, Vishnu.
Sure. Thanks, Karthik, for that. So, network devices, we all understand. I give the example of of your laptop in front of you. It could be anything. It's basically the device, the end infrastructure that we're talking about. So, similarly, what we're doing is basically we have the overlays. So using those three building blocks, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build the software layers. The software layers are basically creating the network abstraction on top of the physical layer. It could be a layer 2 or layer 3 depending on the use cases that we're trying to build. So layer 2 residing inside the switching fabric, layer 3 where we want to route the traffic, route packets. And so when we look at it, so the overlay could be a network overlay, could be a host, or it could be an integrated overlay that we can build. Now, what we do with this? So we briefly look at the building blocks, and so what we're trying to do is, if you look at from the access perspective, from how we connect to the network, we're trying to bring in the software, the programmability aspect to it. So which means when you connect to a certain network or when you try to access certain application, it looks at the context that you carry, looks at historically, what you're trying to do on the network, what you have been doing all this while, and gives you the right access, enables you as a programmer to interact with the network, automate the stuff that you want to do. The another thing that we're trying to achieve is, the most common use case of SDA is SD-WAN, which basically means your internet periphery. You have multiple links that are terminated. So traditionally, on the network side, we used to have ATM frame relays, which were later upgraded to MPLS kind of links, which were then, because MPLS was expensive, but it provided a lot of good capabilities. So now we're talking about the internet links and building redundancy on top of the internet links, trying to optimize the applications. Now, one thing what ISPs do is they do a lot of content peering. So your ISP would be having a dedicated back-to-back tunnel with maybe Netflix or YouTube or Hotstar or Prime or anyone. And basically what they will do with that is, when you try to connect, they will basically be having a dedicated communication path which they will use to give you the application. In terms of taking you to the destination, they will do an intelligent path selection, which means they, out of all the available links that they have, choose what is best. And it could be over anything, making it independent to what underlying link you're using. Now, one very important concept, or rather terminology, which a technology basically which we will see a lot going forward, is virtualization. You all in some form would have used virtualization. The Windows guys who want to get into security typically install VMware or similar virtualization application to run Kali or Metasploit onto it. The Mac guys who want to use Windows application or let's say play Counter-Strike or FIFA, the older versions onto their laptops, they typically do a virtualization of Windows machine inside the Mac. So we have been using it. What it essentially does from a networking or from a programmability perspective is, now we are able to break down the controls into micro application, into functions. So gone are the days where we used to have infrastructure as a service. We are now moving towards more of a function as a service, as a point where everything gets broken down into its core component, and then as and when we need, we spin up those functions, spin up those controls, and use them. So the best way to do it is virtualization, wherein you basically, if you need, so for example, if you need Facebook chat, you just need the messaging part of it. You don't get the entire Facebook application. You just take the messenger of it. If let's say you want when the guys who must be using the Geo network, so Geo has a lot of those apps. If you want to just use one such application, that one such application can be virtualized into a network function, and we can build around it. So be making it open and adaptive to the changes that we want to do. SDN is a complementary thing. It's not mandatory to have it. You can do with the way you want to, but this is something which we'll see a lot going forward. So basically, what it means is you're taking a hardware which is just giving you the CPU, RAM, and the compute. Traditionally, we do x86 or the NPU based, and you build functions on top of it. From a network perspective, the functions could be layer 2 to layer 0 to layer 3, where basically You talk about routing a traffic. And then you can also build functions on layer 7 attributes. Like for one particular application, we want to have a DDoS protection. For one particular application, I want to inspect every single web request that is coming because this is a web application. So I can build those kind of controls, those kind of capabilities. So now let's take the security side of it real quick. So one thing, the first thing that we need to control or we want to secure is the controller, which is basically the communication between my infrastructure layer and my services layer. Then we want to also secure the infrastructure. We want to secure the services, the applications, the orchestration layer, even the API and the communication which is happening, and all the security technologies that we want to bring in together with threat intelligence. The reason why we have so many of components when it comes to security is we need to understand the threat landscape, how a particular application, how a particular service can be attacked. So if somebody wants to bring down your laptop or crash your laptop, they can do it by changing all the register values of your laptop to 1. If they do that, your laptop is of no use from that point on. Or they can send out some malicious code to you in form of an email or in form of a web. If you click onto it, it basically encrypts. So looking at securing your laptop from your hardware perspective, securing it from the communication perspective, securing it from the applications that you're running on top of it is something which is really important. And that's why these security components here. Now, if you just do a Google search and look at the COVID-based attacks or the phishing attacks that has happened, the number is simply huge. And after the initial years that I spent, like after 5-6 years when I was started my career in security, I used to always keep a track of what is the new ransomware, what is the new malware. But of late, I stopped keeping a track of it because it's not about the question when will this be attacked or not. The question is when they will come to know about it. Any machine which gets connected to internet is getting attacked. If you just look at your NATSET command output from your laptop, you would see a lot of traffic, a lot of requests coming in from the outside world, which you never wanted to have. So from securing anything as a fundamental, you need to understand the components, and once you understand the components, you need to understand how this component can be compromised, and then you build security on top of it. It doesn't have to be a new technology altogether. It could be the way you write the software. So it could be anything. So just to give you on each layer, what we can basically do at a high level is, if we want to secure the controller, which is basically controlling the SDN layer, what we can enforce TLS encryption, we can do strong passwords, we can disable all unwanted ports and protocols from the application perspective, enable only what is relevant. So if back in the days when I used to be on Windows, what I used to do was I had disabled my auto run. So, and I didn't have any antivirus software for good 3-4 years, and my machine was never impacted with a virus file, because all they were relying was to auto run behind, so I was very cautious about the fact that what I allow on my system. So it's about that. On the controller, you enable what you need. You have strong passwords. You do encryption. You enforce the right-based controls. So similarly, if you want to secure the infrastructure, you want to look at performing the regular bug scrub. Bug scrub is basically looking at the device, understanding what are the vulnerabilities onto it. If there is a new vulnerability, patch the vulnerability. WannaCry, which happened a couple of years back, all that while it was using SMB as a vulnerability. Everyone came to know about it, but still a lot of people didn't patch it. Even today, in very large networks, we see WannaCry popping up here and there every now and then. So you need to make sure you do the patching, you do the bug scrub. You basically do your configuration management. You ensure that you have the right configuration, the golden config in place. So if you want to secure your application side, you can do it by doing code isolation, resource allocation, doing the digital signing of code. So I think you guys would be knowing a lot more about this probably than me, because it goes back onto how you write or how you build your application, how you build your software. So you guys know about it. Then also looking at the application development lifecycle. So at Cisco, we follow CSD, which is every single software that we build goes through this lifecycle process, wherein we do a threat modeling to understand what are the risks and prioritize those risks, and we do a rigorous testing of it, ensures that the design is built onto the static principles that are being laid. So you can go to this link, read about the CSDL, and if you want to follow it, you can follow it even in your code that you're writing. The other one, which is very important, is securing the orchestration layer, automation layer that you've built. So again, same set of controls. So when you look, so if you look at it here, also we're talking about having a stronger password, enforcing on the communication channel, enforcing encryption, making sure you have high availability of service. You have the role-based access. So if you look at it, the security controls can be same. It just, you need to understand based on what you're trying to protect, whether it is relevant or not relevant, and apply those controls accordingly. The most important piece, securing the communication and the API calls. So when we look at the traditional network controls, the VPN based or syslog forwarding kind of controls, pretty good. We had security there, but when everything is moving towards an API, wherein anyone can fire up an API and either delete all your configuration or add new entries into it, it becomes of great importance to understand and secure those calls. Make sure that only the right ones have the privilege to access. And then we need to have the technology. So does that mean that if somebody is interested in being a network engineer or a security engineer, he has to be a programmer? Probably not, but they need to evolve. A traditional guy, if you just look at the telephones, back in the days we used to have those phones which had those dial screens. So we used to dial the number. Now it's all digital. We just tap in the number, or not even tap in the number. We just call, hey Siri, call Karthik, or call Anurag. So we just use the technology. So we need to evolve with the technology, because that's going to add new skills to it, and it's not really a tough job to learn something new. So just to start with SDN, or just to start with network programmability, all you need to understand is one language, and be proficient about it. I love Python, so that's the reason I've kept Python over here. But it's not hard and fast rule that you need to know Python. It's just because I love Python, so it's there, and I'm too lazy to learn all those Java syntax and everything. So that's one of the reasons. You need to understand what are the APIs, what are some level of basic understanding of SQL, so that you understand the database part of it as well, how to query it, how to do grep. And if you are not really good into programming or programmability, then you need to be a very good communicator so that you can take help of your buddies, your friends who are good at programming, help make them so that they can help you understand and help out you when you need it. So, so from a job perspective, even the traditional network based job profiles are evolving. We have in the newer age, we have requirement for programmability experts. We have requirement for guys who can understand the APIs, who can program a lot of the stuff. So this is the link. You can go and you can look at some of the certifications and other details at the bottom. So one thing what we have done as Cisco is we have on all our softwares or all our solutions. So we have solutions on the networking space where we make router and switches. On security side, we have firewalls. On data center, we have servers, cloud solutions, IoT solutions. So with all the solutions, we have the APIs, we have the programmability built into it, because as Cisco, we understand the importance of it. And we don't want to restrict it just to a bunch of Cisco engineers. And to do that, what we've done is we have created Cisco DevNet, which is open for everyone. You can just go to the DevNet site and register and start using the resources there. Start doing the analysis on the sandbox solutions which are available, which are basically the actual devices that are running. Or if you want to learn about a new technology, you can learn about a new technology there. So let's quickly recap what we have learned. So the old way of doing programming or doing networking was to go onto the site, log into a CLI, configure a particular device. So this is like how the config used to look. Line after line, you just put in the configuration. Now, what we are doing is making it using a software controller. You can configure it while sitting anywhere and control and have the right set of controls and activation in place. So how we are different is the end state is to make the system, the platforms open and programmable so that you can do your automation, you can secure, you can do your analytics and assurance on top of it. So just a quick recap, why SDN is important? Because it makes our operations smart. It brings in a lot of unique threat detection capabilities. It reduces the overhead and ensures that we have a new thing to learn every day. So at this point, I'm done with my presentation. So we can take the questions now. So let me see if there are some questions.
I have posted questions on the WhatsApp, but you can take it from serial number 1.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So there's a question which talks about which topology is suitable in this type of network. So I think by now you would have got the answer to it, but it's all about the topology that you want to build. So it could be a 2-tier architecture of the network, or it could be a 3-tier architecture. And basically, how your application needs the network to be, you can program your network the way you want it. The next question is, for SDN, special network devices are required, or we can use some conventional connecting devices. There is no special device which is required. The whole point of SDN being conceptualized was to have the programming capabilities, to have uniformity and interoperability between heterogeneous devices. So devices from different vendors, different makes, should have the capability. And if you look at devices which are coming in now in the industry, everyone has started having the APIs onto their devices so that they can be programmed the way you want to do it. Okay, so there's a question, what is the difference between SDN and OpenFlow? So SDN is basically your it's an architecture, it's a framework how you want to build it, and OpenFlow is a communication standard. So you have an architecture framework, but inside the architecture, your components, your devices needs to communicate. So Overflow brings in that communication channel, that standardization of that communication channel, and it is the layer 2 communication channel, what Overflow does. There's a question, how to interconnect with IoT? It's a very good question. So you don't have to do anything special to connect your IoT devices. Basically, on all the IoT devices, you have some form of capabilities where you can program them, or you just hook on those devices onto the network. The system can, so your network can learn those devices, and it gives you the control to see, okay, there's this new device which is brought onto the network. Now, if this device communicates to any other device on the network will tell you in a network map, okay, this IoT camera is communicating to a refrigerator or to a car which is parked somewhere, and this should not be happening. So, and then your orchestration platform will help you remediate it automatically. There's a question, is data center devices work on the same principle of SDN and its devices? Yes, now majority of the data center solutions are moving towards SDN based approach. There's a question, SDN meant for only updating content of network architecture, or how it helps in security assessment? So I think I covered it briefly, but just to reiterate the fact that with SDN, you are bringing in a lot of, let me stick to this one. So you're bringing in a lot of automation into play. Now with automation, the thing that gets eradicated is human intervention. Now, if somebody has to configure 100 devices, there is a high probability of somebody making a human error. Now, when these devices are configured manually, the underlying network, the operations have to be configured again in the same way. Now, if we do that, what happens is, because of all of this manual effort that is being done, we need a stronger compliance auditing of it. But when you bring in security on top of it, so SDN will bring in the automation piece to it, will remove all the human errors that are there, and gives us the capability to secure those touch points. So giving me a visibility as soon as somebody plugs a device onto the network will help me to automate or secure it. So I'll give you a practical example of it. So in a smart city, you have all the endpoints open. So you can disconnect an IP camera and connect your laptop and do a DDoS attack inside the infrastructure. But because of the automation and the real-time visibility because of the SDN, the moment you disconnect this camera, the SDN fabric will know that, okay, there's this camera which has got disconnected. The alarms will be generated. And if you plug in a laptop, because you now have the strong authentication controls and the role-based controls in place, you will not be even able to do the Then there's a question, what is the importance of APIs for SDN? APIs are very important, and going forward, APIs is the way to program these devices. They say there is a secure channel between controller and instance. I guess it uses TLS for that. Is it not to avoid overhead? So there's a question which says, which is a very good question, which talks about do the communication channel has to be secured with TLS? Does it add to the overhead onto the network? The encryption on the communication channel ensures that you cannot tap onto it. If it is a clear text communication, I can just put a sniffer into it and get all sort of data out of it. So, few years before in US, it was a state-sponsored attack wherein the cell towers were fake cell towers were created, which were doing sniffing of the packet. So on your mobile devices, the communication to your BNG, to basically your mobile tower, it goes clear text. So they were able to intercept those communications. So it is not an overhead, but it is a necessity. It adds certain performance criteria to it, but that is all factored in. And today we are talking about networks which are 100 gigs in real time. So overhead is not a concern there. Okay. For IoT, how to make devices understand netcons, response protocols. So this is something which is built onto the IoT devices. So they may have netcons or they may have the APIs, depending on what device it is. It can be looked and used into it. Will it bring any change in AI? So AI will definitely add a value to it in terms of bringing in more automation, bringing in more intelligence into it. How well is SDN providing security? Today, so SDN is providing security because it is, as I explained earlier, removing a lot of those manual tasks that are being done. It ensures that the application, the services what are being created are using the network they're supposed to be, instead of opening the whole network for everything and then doing it. Just a moment. So then there are other questions. Is SDN technology good for long haul network or IoT? So IoT is not technology. It's basically the devices and why they are being classified, and they are being classified into a category of IoT devices. But SDN is going to be there. It's been there since 2008, and it's going to be there for a long time, because with so many devices, so many applications being spun up every day, you need the automation piece. You need a software definition, a framework which can interoperate between all of them. So there's a question: can control plane manage virtual network created like in Docker Swarm, Ansible directory, or does it use tunneling, taking host system configuration? So yes, you can use it. So since there are a lot of questions, so whosoever asked this question about the Docker Swarm or Ansible directly, you can think offline. So I can share more details onto it. So there's a question, as I read, TLS is same as SSL version 3. No, it is not the same. We no longer are using SSL now. It's all TLS that is being used. So the current standard, which is TLS 1.3, which is being which we're talking about nowadays, the biggest change what it has brought in is inside your so when you do a TCP handshake, basically you send out the hello packet, and then the acknowledgement comes in, and you respond to the acknowledgement. So it has brought down that communication and brought it down into just 4 to 5 of them. And there is a particular field which we call it as SNI value. In TLS 1.3, the SNI value can also be encrypted. So once you encrypt the SNI value, it is not possible to go ahead and decrypt that. Okay, so there's another question which is, what happens when the centralized control plane becomes faulty or crashes? So that this is the precise reason why we moved to a hybrid SDN, wherein instead of having a dedicated centralized single SDN controller, we still have the control plane capabilities onto the devices. And in today, whenever we build any network or any architecture, we always build resiliency to it. So there's always a high availability built into it. So even if, let's say, your high availability is gone for a toss, there's no reachability to the controller, you still, because we are now talking about a hybrid SDN, you will still have some control plane functions onto your device. There's a question, is SDN more on the electronics part of cybersecurity? SDN is open. I mean, SDN, it is applicable to the devices as well. It is applicable in the security world. It is applicable in the data center world, IoT, cloud, everywhere. Okay, so there are a couple of more questions. If iRegister is changed to recovery of system is not possible. I couldn't make out the question, but what I can sense out of it is, if you're registered to one controller, then the recovery of system, you're talking about the recovery. So,
no, I think Bhishma, I think what he was referring to is, during the presentation, you mentioned that, if you change the registry value to one, okay, on your system, on your desktop, then, the system can be compromised, right? I think he's referring to that part.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes. So, if you change, so first thing, it is not easy to do, but there is a way to do it. And if you successfully change all the register values of your device to one, you can bring down the device, and it would be beyond recovery. Security with different level of OSI layer, which is more concern among application on network layer. Yeah, so OSI layer or TCP/IP stack, both are equally valid, and we use them quite often to understand and break down the building blocks. So the example I gave about the layer, so on the VNF side, we can break it down to have a function which is only focused on layer 2, layer 3, a function which is only focused on layer 7 part of it. So a layer 2 to layer function will only look at the IP routing, basically whether the application is a TCP based or a UDP based. But when I look at the layer 7 attribute, I will also be looking at what is this application, what kind of connections is this application doing, and all the details around it. How the topology of SDN is defined. So SDN, I think I answered it earlier also. So SDN is a framework, it's an architecture. So you can have any network topology. Basically, how you automate, how you bring the programmability onto it is what SDN gives a value add. So there's a question, can you proceed with research in SDN field? If yes, how? Using simulator or anything else? So if you are interested in proceeding with SDN, I've shared the links throughout the presentation, so you can go to those links. If you're looking at from a technology standpoint or learning a new technology, you can go to Cisco DevNet. They have simulations of all the software, the applications, the SDN controllers and everything in a sandbox environment. You can play around with it. There are labs available which you can do. So this becomes your starting point, and then you can go along. Okay, there is a question, what are the skills required to get an internship at Cisco on cybersecurity? So, unfortunately, I don't have the answer to this question at the moment. But from So what you can do is you can look at the Cisco portal, the job portal. There may be some internship programs which keep on coming up. And in general, if you want to start into cybersecurity, there's no skill that is required. It's more of the skills can be learned. It's more of an attitude what is needed. So you need to be have an attitude where you want to learn new things every day, at every single hour, and you should have a knack of thinking. If somebody comes and tells you, okay, this is how this thing works, you should have a knack of breaking it down, understanding the components, and then going about it. And technology, the skills like if you want to understand malware analysis, it's a skill. You can learn, you can read about it, you can learn it. If you want to get into the data security domain, how data protection works, how encryption works, you can do that as well. So skill is the easier part. All what is required to start in this domain is for you to have an attitude of learning, and that's all what is required. So there's a question I'm working on RYU controller. Is it possible to connect it with Open Daylight controller for whatever scenario I have? So I think I need more details. So if you can send details, we can help you with that. So there's another question: what extra features are provided by Cisco SDN solution compared to OpenSDN, which is open source and can be implemented? From a Cisco's SDN solution, and if you compare it with an open standard of SDN, the open standard SDN solutions which are out there, they are focused on only the programmability side of it and a small component of automation. But the Cisco solution is built onto those two principles, but focuses deeply on the security, the compliance piece of it, and assurance. So assurance from a service availability perspective, from a security standpoint, that's a big key difference between the Cisco's approach and the traditional approach. And if you look at our approach today, is to make our products open enough so that anyone who wants to use them, consume them, they can consume them the way they want to consume it, and ensuring that the right security and service assurance is provided to them. Another huge difference is when we are building any software out there, we are following a Cisco standard guideline, which has security at its core. The open standards, they do not follow that. Should the beginner implementing in layer 4 or layer 7? Depends on the use case that you're trying to build. So there's a question: what is the difference between SDN and OpenFlow? I think we already covered it, so I'm just skipping it. There's a question: few research topics related to SDN. So when you talk about research, it's up to you. It's up to your domain of interest. So if your domain of interest is bringing in the interoperability between the devices, you can do that by researching into the different devices, what are the languages they understand, how a common API. So today, pretty much all the devices support REST API. So how can you use the REST API and translate into the devices? That could be one area. If you're more focused towards the security side of it, then you can look at, okay, now how do I ensure the encryption? How do I ensure the communication is secured? How do I intercept the API calls, inspect them? So that could be one area you can look at. Okay, so there's a question: is it possible to include additional protocols to ONAP architecture? So the protocols, so there are multiple protocols which are available. You can use them. So the ones I told about were just the starting points, but you can use pretty much anything. There's a question: how the security issues are taken care in SDN? What is the current challenge being faced? The current challenge is when you have so many devices, so many different solutions communicating and talking to each other, the biggest challenge is how do you ensure that this is the right communication, that this communication, whosoever is making this communication, is the legitimate source. Now, today when pretty much everyone is working from their home or studying from their home, you guys have access to the data stores in your campus. You have access to some of the confidential data or some of the research papers that is only internal to your institute. Now, if somebody impersonates your identity by just taking your username and password, he can also access that. So that's a security threat which we are dealing with right now. So one way of doing it is enforcing multiple factors of authentication, ensuring that when you as a user are coming in, it is the right user from the right device, and he's not deviating from his baseline. So the network is learning every single point of time. So if there was a server for example, there is a server which you have connected once in last 6 months, and all of a sudden, if you start connecting to that server 10 times in 1 hour, it's an indicator, it's a flag. So the Cisco solution, it picks it up, alerts it, and then the corrective measures are taken around that. Which overlay SDN solution is best for data center? It's the integrated one because inside the data center you would have both the frameworks. So the integrated one is the best one. There's a question: what are the things necessary for the person if he wants to go into the networking field? I think starting with CCNA, CCNP, which gives a very good understanding on what is the network, is a good starting point. And then from that point on, whatever is your interest area, you can specialize into that. If you want to specialize into the data center or the collaboration platforms or IoT or security, you can start from there. There's a question: is it mandatory to use TLS 1.3 if we already using TLS 1.2? TLS 1.3 is not mandatory right now. It is up to the application, the web developer, what he wants to use. But going forward, in a couple of years, TLS 1.3 will be the de facto standard. There's a question: nowadays we also use Wi-Fi calling. Do you think it is secure to use? There are certain controls. So I happen to work with the service providers also who have launched the Wi-Fi calling in India. So yes, it is secured, and they're also building more security controls around it. So in security, so if somebody comes to you and tells you that, okay, hey, I will give you 100% security, there's nothing like it. Security is, you keep learning every day, you keep improving every day. It's a journey. There's a question: how to design lab components for this course? What hardware is required? So I would say just go to DevNet and search for SDN controller. So there's a SDN courseware on DevNet with the sandbox, which has all the software hardware images which you can play around. It has the labs. It also lists down all the requirements if you want to put together a lab. SDN is more vulnerable hacking device. I think we're talking about, is SDN vulnerable to hacking attempts? I would say anything which connects to internet and is not secured can be hacked. But SDN brings in so in security. So I think we have got half of the questions around security. So one thing what really matters in security is, or how do you even measure your security, is how much time it takes to detect. Now, in a traditional network where everything was manual, all the controls were manual, the time to detect of any threat is around 100 to 150 days. That's the time in which you will even detect anything. And then once you start detecting, you will respond to it. So you're looking at a 3-month, 4-month time window. But when you have SDN, when you have automation and programmability in place, you can cut short this time to detect and respond to just a couple of hours. So there's a very good case study of how we as a Cisco has done it. So probably I'll share the link with Karthik, and when he posts the video, he can share that link with it. So you can refer to that. So I think these are the questions what we have. I think I've answered all of them.
Yes, you have answered all of them.
Yeah.
And I have posted the assessment question. We'll go there.
Right. Yeah, I think we are running out of time as well. Thanks a lot, Beesh. It was a very insightful session. Thanks a lot for taking time